As we enter 2020, we find ourselves, at least economically, in a pretty good position. Unemployment rate is low. Inflation rate is low. We have a Federal Reserve that is very accommodative. And all in all, the economic backdrop is very nice. I guess the big thing happening in 2020 is the presidential election. Presidential elections typically have a pretty significant effect on the investment markets, particularly the stock market. Typically going into a presidential election year, the stock market tends to do pretty well, primarily because both in Congress and the administration, each individual does what they can to get reelected. And that typically has to do with perhaps tax policy or spending policies that tend to boost the economy. And we certainly saw that in last December's budget deal. As the year goes on, as the uncertainty about the election becomes, let's say, more uncertain, you tend to get more volatility in the investment markets. As that election becomes more certain, as people know, regardless of party, what the outcome is going to be, it tends to settle down and the markets tend to rally into year end. The key here is what happens. If it's a very close election, we're likely to see more volatility. If it's a less close election, it's probably not going to be a hugely volatile market. We'll have to wait and see, but there's clearly an effect on the investment markets as we go through the year. Beyond that, over the next several years, perhaps even beyond the next decade, the primary drivers are going to be what we're calling the rise of the millennial generation and the expansion of 5G and other technologies. If you think about these long-term themes, they will provide a terrific tailwind for the U.S. economy for many, many years to come. The millennial generation is a little over a quarter of the entire United States that are now coming into their primary spending years. They're buying homes, they're creating families, they're having children. If you remember when you had children, or if you have children, that process is expensive, and that's kind of your peak spending years, and we're seeing an entire generation come into this. On top of that, we have the build out of 5G telecommunication systems and other technologies. Now this is more of a global story, but it's going to be very important in the United States and across the world. As we see this build out, and this is going to take many, many years to build out, that's huge spending on technology, huge spending on infrastructure. This is going to take us through the election cycle into 2022, 2024, and beyond. So right now, when we look at the backdrop for the U.S. economy and for the U.S. markets, while we may see some near-term volatility based on a political process, the long-term outlook for the United States and the long-term outlook for the markets is really good.